Hogwarts. Start in Azkaban. I think I have done something wrong and I should sincerely apologize. Chuhi raised his head and said with some discomfort. It's promising. As a king, you can't bow your head to others. Even if you make a mistake, you should apologize with a proud attitude. Is that an apology? Chuhi complained a little speechlessly. As long as a noble person admits his mistakes, he has already given face to the people below. That's why I don't allow you to bow your head. Cassandra insisted. Okay, I'll pay attention in the future, we're almost going to the classroom, right? Chuhi didn't want to quarrel with Cassandra about this, it was pointless. Cassandra took a sip of her coffee, then drew her wand and tapped it on the coffee mug. Clear water is like a spring. The clear spring water immediately poured out of the coffee cup to wash away the remaining coffee, and then Cassandra tapped the coffee cup again to remove the water in the coffee cup, and then put the coffee cup into a place that cast a traceless stretch spell, in a delicate key-set box. Hey, did you bring your own cutlery? Chuhi looked at Cassandra in surprise. That is, the things I used, people secretly took them out and sold them before. It was very annoying. After that, I will take everything I use with me. Steal tableware. Chuhi was a little surprised. When it comes to stealing a valuable item, like a precious magic book or a magic stone, he can understand it, but stealing an ordinary tableware is completely incomprehensible. Looks like some kind of avid collector. Anyway, my dad used his connections to throw them in Azkaban. Cassandra waved her hand. I don't know those people very well. I said, you also have to be careful about the things you use being stolen. The things used by people in high positions will also become noble, understand? I suggest you also take care of your personal items. Cassandra has a serious suggestion. I have an anti-theft spell applied to my important things, so I shouldn't have to worry about this. Besides, I'm not a noble person with a prominent position. Chuhi shrugged. The status I am talking about is not because of the status of family background or blood, but will depend on our achievements in the future. In this regard, you will definitely be a big man in the future. The notebooks and quills you have used by then will depend on our future achievements, and even the bed that has been slept in may be collected at a high price. That's a scary thing for avid collectors. The corners of Chuhi's mouth twitched, he thought this should be considered a pervert. That's right, it's really annoying to have your belongings taken by others without the owner's permission, so you have to be careful not to be stolen by others. It is good. Chuhi nodded, and then the two came to the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. Since the two had been chatting for a while in Slytherin's common room, there were already some Gryffindor students sitting in the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. And a handsome blonde man with a dashing smile on his face was wearing a handsome cape half leaning on the podium, showing a mature masculine smile at the girls in Gryffindor. Let's see who's here. I never thought Gilderoy Lockhart could be the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor of the little hero who debunked the you-know-who conspiracy. Come, Chuhi, the two of us take a photo together. This photo will definitely be on the front page of the Daily Prophet in the future. Gilderoy waved at Chuhi enthusiastically. Chuhi is a popular man in the wizarding world. Of course, he will rub off the popularity of this door. I don't have much interest in being on the front page of the Daily Prophet, so take the picture, Professor Lockhart. Chuhi looked at Lockhart with a slight frown. He has already activated the magic perspective charm. To be honest, his new Defense Against the Dark Arts professor's magic power is not very high. The previous Quirrell's magic power can reach the cyan magic power in the heart, but this one has a lot of famous. The magic power in Gilderoy Lockhart's body only reached half of his body filled with white. To be honest, Cassandra next to him has more magic power than him, knowing that Cassandra is only 11 years old this year, and Gilderoy Lockhart looks at least 30 years old. To put it bluntly, his level of magic power is the bottom of the dark wizard. Chuhi can't understand how he survived from trolls, vampires, werewolves, ghosts and other magical creatures. And he has studied that a person's magic power will increase the upper limit by constantly releasing magic power. This magic power in Gilderoy looks like a wizard who has not used magic spells well, otherwise he should not only have such a little magic power of. This person's experience is somewhat inconsistent with his strength. Hey, don't be so shy, take a few more shots and you'll like it. Gilderoy Lockhart, who was rejected by Chu-hee, was not angry at all and walked directly to Chu-hee. After all, he was the one who wanted to be hot. "Professor Lockhart, please note that I'm not shy, I just don't like being hung in the newspapers and attracting crowds." Chu-hee said indifferently. "Isn't that just being shy? It's not good. Celebrities must have the self-knowledge of celebrities. You will definitely be photographed in many places in the future. It's better to exercise yourself now. Come, take this magic camera and help me and Chu-hee take a picture." Lockhart handed his magic camera to a schoolgirl in Gryffindor in a friendly voice for Chu-hee. "Professor Lockhart, I personally don't want to take a photo with you. If you insist on doing it, then beat me to take a photo with you." Chu-hee pulled out his wand in annoyance. He was in Nocturne Alley. A small character like Lockhart would run away without even saying a word when he saw him. This guy actually wanted to force him to come over and follow him. The group photo made him very uncomfortable. This person is not qualified to be in the same frame as him. "You want to have a magical duel with me?" Lockhart was stunned for Chu-hee's attitude. After all, Chu-hee looked only 9 years old, and he was a well-known adult in the wizarding world. "If you force me to take a photo with you, then I have to ask you for advice." Chu-hee bowed slightly and gracefully gave a duel salute. Lockhart thought for a while, if he could beat Chu-hee here, his fame would be even higher. After all, Chu-hee is now recognized as a little hero in the wizarding world. And exposing Voldemort's conspiracy also made the wizards instinctively ignore Chu-hee's age, which would make them feel very ashamed. After all, they couldn't even cast a spell when they were 9 years old, and even when they were adults, at that time in the Age of Horror, no one dared to go to the trouble of the mysterious man, and even today, people still dare not call out Voldemort's name. So after a short thought, Lockhart came to the conclusion that a magical duel with Chu-hee would do him no harm, and Chu-hee would be a stepping stone to his fame. He had no idea what would happen if he lost. After all, Chu-hee was only 9 years old. If Gilderoy Lockhart knew about Chu-hee's previous record, I'm afraid he would pack up and run on the spot now, but he is a very narcissistic person, and his strength is not good, and he has hardly dealt with dark wizards, so he does not. I know that Chu-hee also has the title of the God of Death with black hair and silver eyes. Ha ha ha, then let's have a friendly, magical duel until the end. Classmates, please rest assured, as an excellent adult, I will not hurt your favorite little hero. After the duel is over, I will use my proficient medical magic to heal his wounds. Gilderoy Lockhart drew his wand dashingly. Chu-hee, Professor Lockhart is very powerful. He has cured all kinds of dangerous magical creatures such as werewolves, vampires, trolls, etc. Don't be impulsive. Hermione shouted worriedly from the side. She felt that Chu-hee was a little too impulsive. Honestly, if Lockhart asked her to come over for a photo, she'd be more than happy. It would be better to say that she can take a photo with a hero in the wizarding world like Lockhart, and she is willing to pay her. But after all, when we communicated in the library some time ago, she and Chu-hee can be regarded as friends, so she reminded Chu-hee. Don't be impulsive. Huh, then let me experience Professor Lockhart's strength. Chu-hee gave Hermione a confident smile, then turned his eyes back to Lockhart. Okay, have the courage. It's good for teenagers to have such momentum. Lockhart complimented, and at the same time spread a handsome smile to the girls around him. Then, Professor, it's almost time for a duel. Chu-hee asked. Ha ha ha, come on, come on. With a wave of Lockhart's hand, the girls around him dispersed obediently, while the boys turned their supportive eyes to Chu-hee. After all, Lockhart had made these girls so obsessed with them that it made them a little uncomfortable. Of course, there are some boys who want to watch Chu-hee make a fool of himself. Cassandra took a seat next to her. Chu-hee, do you want to win? I won't allow you to lose to him. Cassandra asked that she didn't like a frivolous man like Lockhart very much, and she would be very upset if Chu-hee lost to such a man. Follow your orders, Chu-hee replied with a smile. Lockhart's face suddenly looked a little ugly. After all, an 11-year-old girl asked a 9-year-old boy to win her in a magical duel. Isn't that underestimating him? And Chu-hee boldly accepted this request. He has decided to deduct points from the Slytherin branch where Chu-hee is located. And the surrounding students are also excited again. The previous duel between Chuhi and the captain of the Slytherin Academy, Marcus, ended when both sides defeated the magic Marcus and lost the fighting spirit, which made most students feel unsatisfied. But this time Chuhi's opponent is the famous Gilderoy Lockhart, and they are all looking forward to this magical duel. Then salute each other. Lockhart walked up to Chuhi and drew his wand in a sword-drawing gesture. Chuhi bowed gracefully again, and then the two of them stepped back and walked 5 steps each. 1, 2, 3. Accept your weapons. When the 3 words fell, a swift magic light hit the wand in Lockhart's hand, and then the wand in Lockhart's hand flew out, and Chuhi lightly caught Lockhart's wand with his left hand. There was an uproar at the scene. Unexpectedly, as soon as the duel started, Lockhart's wand used a disarming spell to disarm Chuhi. This is a woolen thread. When a wizard loses his wand, it's almost like a muggle, and only a few powerful wizards can cast spells without a wand. Cough cough, with all due respect, Chuhi's sneak attack is against the concept of dueling. I think it's not good. You have to be upright and upright. With his wand disarmed, Lockhart's face froze a little, and he started talking to himself. Obviously, it's obvious that I want to deal with Chuhi's curse, but I was afraid of hurting him, so I made a knight-like manner and gave the first strike. Chuhi is still young and doesn't know the rules of duel. It's also normal, I think. Let's go here today. What Lockhart said about Chuhi's angry face started to twitch. Is this person too shameless? If he loses, how can he find such a high-sounding reason to pretend to be on his head? Come on, here's the wand for you, this is your first strike. With the chestnut wand in Chuhi's hand, he used the suspension spell to control Lockhart's wand and flew in front of him. Lockhart looked at the wand floating in front of him. After all, judging from the speed of Chuhi's shot just now, Chuhi is really powerful, and he may not be able to beat him. Come on, Professor Lockhart, come on, you go first, don't worry, I'm standing here. Chuhi spoke provocatively. Then, let's play again, this time, it's up to you to cooperate with me. With Chuhi's assurance, Lockhart was relieved and took his wand. After all, he is a famous person. If he loses in such a large audience, if he does not regain his face, it will have a certain impact on his reputation. The reason why Chuhi returned the wand to Lockhart is because Lockhart is much worse than him in the total amount of magic power, and the attacking magic spell released by him will greatly reduce the attack effect of his own, plus he has mastered the ordinary magic power. The anti-curse of the curse, as long as Lockhart doesn't use some strange spells, he can be almost harmless. Then he will taunt Lockhart well, so that he can no longer make excuses. Chuhi stood still, ready to hit Lockhart's spell, and then Lockhart pretended to fencing. Accept your weapons. Lockhart flicked his wand handsomely, and a magic light flashed, and then Ronald Weasley was hit by the magic light, and was hit hard and flew 3 meters away. Chuhi was stunned. He had never seen any scene in Knockturn Alley. But he had never seen this scene today. The quasi-head of Lockhart's spell is too embarrassing. The disarming charm is not like the life-changing charm, but its accuracy is very high. The life-suppressing spell will make the wand shake violently when attacking, which greatly reduces the hit rate. Therefore, if you want to use the life-suppressing spell to hit the enemy, you need a strong wand control ability and aiming ability, which is a difficulty of the life-suppressing spell. But the disarming spell was originally created to be a spell that can quickly capture the opponent's weapon, and the accuracy must be very high, so Lockhart can hit Ronald. He doesn't know how to complain about Lockhart. Obviously, the main reason why Lockhart hit Crooked is that he wanted to pose a sword-wielding pose, but he didn't aim at himself seriously at all, and as a result, the spell release hit Ronald. Professor, hit here, your opponent is me. Chuhi nodded his body mockingly. I know. Don't rush me. Lockhart shouted in a gaffe. What he has done for more than 10 years is to visit those wizards with special experiences by relying on his own reputation, extracting their adventures from their air, and then relying on them to treat himself. The trust used the forgetting spell to make them forget these experiences and the process of communicating with themselves, and finally transferred these heroic deeds to themselves and sold books to make money. To be honest, he hasn't had a formal magical duel with people like this for many years. He remembered that he had learned from other alumni last time when he was a student. At that time, he was beaten badly, so he turned to study the Oblivion spell, stealing the adventures of others and placing them on himself. He had promised to have a magical duel with Chuhee before, but also seeing that Chuhee was only 9 years old, he thought that Chuhee had no ability, but the series of mistakes made him gradually lose his calm. Although the first time Chuhee beat him completely by his own strength, Lockhart felt that it was only Chuhee's luck and sneak attack that he won. Xing xing xing, you aim slowly, I'll wait. Chuhee spread his hands gracefully. PFF'd. Cassandra on the side couldn't help laughing. Lockhart immediately gave Cassandra an unhappy look, but Cassandra was not afraid of Lockhart at all. Her emerald green pupils were full of nobility and pride. After staring at Cassandra for a few seconds, Lockhart was finally defeated, and then returned to the desk with a wave of his sleeves in anger, not even thinking about the magical duel with Chuhee. He couldn't figure out why he was afraid of the eyes of an 11-year-old girl like Cassandra, but the blade-like eyes made him chill. Slytherin students take note, because your classmates are disrespectful to the teacher, the academy will be deducting 20 points. Lockhart sneered and picked up the quill. A professor can give 20 points deduction and 20 extra points every year, and he now decides to use the deduction authority for Chuhee and Cassandra. You dare! Cassandra slapped the desk so hard that Lockhart's hands shook and he couldn't write. My dad is from the Ministry of Magic, a liar like you. As long as I tell him, you will be imprisoned in Azkaban with other criminals. If you dare to detain today, I promise you will be within a week. Just thrown into Azkaban. Cassandra threatened Lockhart on the spot. When he heard Azkaban, Lockhart's face turned green. Basically, no wizard can keep calm after hearing Azkaban, except for high-level wizards like Chuhee, Dumbledore, Voldemort. Other wizards have a deep fear of Azkaban, not to mention he himself is a wizard who grew up in a greenhouse. But he can't just give in like this now, it will definitely be a heavy blow to his reputation, and if he doesn't defend himself, then wouldn't he admit that he is a liar who deceives the world? You don't have to slander me with empty words. How can I be a liar who deceives the world? What I have experienced are real events, and there are detailed evidences in my book that you can use for research. Lockhart opened his mouth to argue. Then you are so bad in actual combat that you can't even beat my Chuhee. Cassandra held Lockhart domineeringly. But she was a little too demanding. After all, in the whole of Hogwarts, Dumbledore was the only one who could stabilize Chuhee. After all, in terms of killing, even Snape, who had been a Death Eater, had not killed as many people as Chuhee. Even if Snape, McGonagall or Flitwick are better than Chuhee in terms of the total amount of magic power, but in terms of life and death and magic spells, Chuhee has the upper hand, plus the three of them as professors treat students themselves. There is a certain soft-heartedness, which makes the two sides really fight, and the last laugh is definitely Chuhee. Of course, Lockhart didn't understand Chuhee's true strength. Indeed, as Cassandra said, he can't even deal with a 9-year-old Chuhee now, which is a bit embarrassing. Cough, I'm in a bad state of health today, I'm a little dizzy, so I accidentally hit Ronald just now, I'm really sorry. As Lockhart spoke, his face was pale and large beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, looking very painful and weak. This superb acting immediately made some female students who were confused by his adult male charm began to support Lockhart. Cough, but, no matter what, Chuhee also defeated me who was not in good shape, so I decided to give Slytherin 5 points. Lockhart glanced at Cassandra secretly as he spoke. He was really frightened by Cassandra's background. When he thought about the fact that he might be thrown into Azkaban, Lockhart felt chills all over, so he was exempted from the revenge of deducting points, and instead gave Chuhee extra points to make Cassandra stop making trouble for her. At this time, Hermione, who originally had a good impression of Lockhart, was also a little disappointed. She was very smart, and from Lockhart's heavy performance, she gradually discovered the facts that were different from the rumors. Judging by the way Lockhart performed with Chuhee, he wasn't as heroic, composed and powerful as the book portrayed. On the contrary, Chuhee, very elegant, so handsome from beginning to end. Hermione came back to her senses and patted her hot cheeks. What was she thinking? The girl named Cassandra in Slytherin clearly showed her dominance over Chuhee, and Chuhee didn't either. To refute her saying that my family, Chuhee, you shouldn't be a bad girl who destroys other people's feelings. Hermione said to herself that her relationship with Chuhee was as good as the kind of like-minded friends in the library. But, a little bit, I envy Cassandra. If only I could have known Chuhee earlier. Well, it seems that there is a love potion called ecstasy in the potions textbook. With a snap, Hermione patted her cheek with both hands again. What was she thinking about? But, only Chuhi looked at himself with that kind of admiration and no disgust, unlike the others in Gryffindor. He doesn't think he is a person who likes to show off. It's normal for him to want to go further with a handsome, elegant, and powerful person like him. And no matter how you look at it, Chuhi is a little smaller than himself, and he always finds it very cute. Hermione unknowingly fell into her own reverie again. And this loud slap on the face also attracted the attention of the people around, but Hermione didn't realize it. Until she heard Ronald's muffled voice being lifted up by Harry. Let's just say she's a weirdo. She likes to show off. It's no wonder she can't make friends. Hermione glared at Ronald, but was surprised to find that the other students were also looking at her with an isolated look, as if they were all saying that they deserved to be said by Ronald. She slightly regretted her choice to come to Gryffindor at the sorting ceremony. The people here were not friendly to her at all. If she could get Slytherin with Chuhi at that time, maybe she would have a companion instead of being swayed by others. People crowd out. The Sorting Hat was more inclined to let her go to Slytherin at the time. Did she choose the wrong house? Hermione finished Lockhart's defense against the dark arts class in such a bad mood. In one day, the disillusionment of the idol's true identity being revealed and being isolated by her classmates in the branch, Hermione ran to the library in a bad mood. Today, she wants to see Chuhi more than usual, and wants to chat with him. Knowledge and insights about spells. After taking Gilderoy Lockhart's defense against the dark arts class, Chuhi and Cassandra avoided the crowd and came to the Forbidden Forest on the edge of the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry grounds. Since Dumbledore ordered the students to be prohibited from entering the Forbidden Forest during the opening ceremony, there were not many students who usually came here to hang out. And Chuhi is planning to have a magical duel with Cassandra here. Don't you let the water out? Cassandra asked again. I can't do that, Chuhi said frankly. Are you looking down on me? Cassandra questioned a little unhappily. It's not like that. I didn't let the water go, I just ran for my opponent's life. You are my friend, and I don't want to kill you. Chuhi explained. Then, allow you to put in a little water, but fight with me seriously. Cassandra asked. I can promise you this. Chuhi nodded slightly. Afterwards, after the two had each performed the duel ceremony 10 steps apart, Chuhi started the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Hanging the Fuchsia Curse. Earth-piercing. Cassandra swore that she never underestimated Chuhi, so she used the very controlling Fuchsia charm at the beginning, but the ground under her feet suddenly rose, causing her to lose her balance, and the Fuchsia charm was swept away. Naturally, the magic light didn't hit Chuhi either. Before she could regain her balance, she saw Chuhi raised her wand high, and then 3 magic missiles condensed from pure magic power around her and flew directly towards her body. Cassandra subconsciously flew a few meters to the side, and then quickly flipped up from the ground, and the 3 magic missiles that Chuhi had hit directly exploded 3 large pits on the ground. The beautiful emerald pupils suddenly shrank. This trick would have to be crippled even if it didn't die, right? And what kind of weird magic is this, let alone seeing it, she has never heard of it. Then, Cassandra felt a pain in her cheek, and some kind of sharp invisible blade cut her cheek. This is the wind blade formed by the wind. You should always be vigilant about your opponent's actions. Some spells don't have the magic light when they are triggered, but most wizards use wands to aim at the target. Chuhi's teaching came from a distance, and Cassandra quickly ducked the other 2 wind blades with her intuition. At the same time, she felt that pure killing intent was overflowing from Chuhi, acting on her with an extremely terrifying oppressive force, causing her body to fall into a state of rigidity due to instinctual fear. Get moving, there are all kinds of magic in this world, and you can't learn them all in a lifetime, so the other party may use magic spells you don't understand to attack you at any time. If you can't fight back, then keep going. Run for your life, observe the spell used by the opponent, and then come up with a cracking method. Instinctively dodge my attack, don't be dominated by fear, then only death is waiting for you. Chuhi's scolding came from not far away again, and then Cassandra felt an invisible magic power emanating from Chuhi's chestnut wand, and then the gravel on the surrounding ground all vacated to form an array. Cassandra, who instinctively felt bad, obeyed Chuhi's teaching subconsciously and ran frantically, while pieces of rubble chased her body like bullets and splashed, pieces of rubble easily embedded in the trees of the forbidden forest. Until Cassandra could no longer run and fell to the ground, the last rubble fell in front of her. I told you to be serious, but you really didn't want to kill me. Cassandra complained. I promise I didn't want to kill you, but the dark wizards you meet in the future will definitely want to kill you. I'm just training you to protect yourself when facing them. Cassandra, you have to remember that it's not a life and death battle at school, but when you meet a dark wizard or a Death Eater, they only think about how to kill you, rather than letting you suffer at their hands. It's better to suffer in my hands. Chuhi said seriously. Yes, but I have never heard of the magic you used. Cassandra was a little aggrieved. After all, Chuhi was too ruthless. He's never been so hard on Lockhart. This is to exercise your independent thinking ability. Even me, I can't use all magic, so instead of giving you the cracking method, it is better for you to independently think about how to crack my attack. The reason why Chuhi trains Cassandra in this way is mainly because Cassandra's character is a more arrogant and flamboyant type, and this kind of character can easily make enemies with dark wizards or Death Eaters. Although he said that he could make the anti-curse of the 3 unforgivable spells for her, it was impossible to engrave all the anti-curses of magic, so she still had to improve her own strength. In the school, with Cassandra's magical talent, she can suppress other students, and even senior students can't get good at her hands, but adult dark wizards are not as easy to deal with as these students. Oh, then you shouldn't cut my face. What should I do if I leave a scar? Cassandra covered her cheeks a little sadly. She was still very satisfied with her appearance. She would definitely not forgive Chuhi if she broke her face. Don't worry, I will cure you, there will be no scars, and the injury will pass away. Chuhi walked in front of Cassandra, and gently healed the bruises and wounds Cassandra accidentally received while dodging and the wounds cut by her own wind blade. He dared to hurt Cassandra, and he was sure of curing her. HMPH, if you leave a scar, I'll bite you to death. Then you'll have to take responsibility for me. Responsible. Chuhi froze for a moment. Be responsible for marrying me. If you mess me up, if I can't get married, then you have to marry me. Cassandra said proudly. Aren't you afraid that I won't cure you on purpose? Then it's you who suffers. Cassandra looked at Chuhi with a smile. Are you getting married? I have a lot of enemies. I won't date you until your strength is enough to protect yourself. It will bring danger to you and bring weakness to me. PFF'd, don't underestimate me. It's the first time I've been frightened by an attack like this, and if I repeat it a few times later, I'll definitely be fine. Cassandra answered confidently. Isn't it the dark wizard Death Eater? She has Chuhi to accompany her. She doesn't think she is worse than others. On the contrary, she thinks she is the best Slytherin alongside Chuhi. Since Chuhi can do things, she will do them too. It's time to stand by Chuhi's side as an equal. And, to be honest, she wanted to protect Chuhi. After all, she was older than Chuhi. Okay, that's the end of today's magical duel. Your body has fallen into a state of exhaustion. Go back and have a good rest later. A wizard must not only have profound attainments in magic, but also need to exercise physical fitness, otherwise he may not be able to escape the spell of his opponent. No matter how powerful the spell is, if you can't hit it, it's meaningless, so you not only have to exercise magic but also exercise. Chuhi said. How on earth do you know so much? Cassandra asked with some doubts. This theory, even her tutor did not say it. You need to know her tutor, but her father has found a very good auror in the Ministry of Magic to teach him. I don't know that so many I have died under the hands of the dark wizards. It's just that I have accumulated these experiences because I have lived until now. Okay, I have some information and I want to go to the library to check it. You can go back to the dormitory to rest. Chuhi helped Cassandra stand up. Are you going to study the improvement spell again? You're going to teach me your weird but powerful magic later, okay? Cassandra asked. There is no way. The improved magic used by Chuhi is much more handsome than the ordinary magic she has seen. As a child, she naturally wants to learn this more cool magic. Okay, when you can get used to my attack, I'll start teaching you. Chuhi nodded. Then Cassandra hummed a song and returned to Slytherin's lounge in a good mood, while Chuhi went to the library. In fact, with the support of Hermione's knowledge reserve, he is now very smooth in cracking the curse on the most evil magic book. Hermione is as good as an encyclopedia with answers to all questions, saving him the time spent on consulting materials. Lot of time. After arriving at the old place that he and Hermione usually agreed to, Chuhi found that Hermione was looking at the book in front of her with red eyes, but judging from her dull eyes, she obviously didn't see anything. What's wrong? Did someone bully you? Hermione. Chuhi sat opposite Hermione and asked with concern. Ah, Chuhi, you are here. Hermione wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and gave a reluctant smile that was a little distressing. What's wrong? What happened? I hope you can answer me a question truthfully. Hermione hesitated for a moment and decided to chat with Chuhi about her heart. Okay, I promise you. Chuhi nodded in agreement. Me, am I a weird person? The other students in my branch looked at me, a bit cold, and they also said I was a weird person. Hermione asked sadly. She was afraid to hear the answer from Chuhi's mouth, but she needed a strong support at this time. I don't think you're weird. In fact, people are jealous of good people in private. Is that so? Hermione's depressed mood slightly improved for Chuhi's answer. You know, in fact, my legilimency is pretty good. I can see through other people's eyes a little bit of what they're thinking. When I was sought after by everyone, I rejected the proposal of the Academy team captain Marcus' invitation. When I had a magical duel with him at that time, many people actually expected to see me being taught a hard lesson by him. This is also one of the reasons why I don't want to play with them. Some of them actually don't like me in their hearts, and they only want to contact me because of the fame they put on me. Chuhi said. Ah. Then you also read my heart. Hermione looked at Chuhi in shock. If Chuhi read her heart, wouldn't her previous thoughts about love potions be exposed? Then she will be ashamed on the spot. No, I won't treat my friend like that. This is the least respect. Since you took the initiative to help me, I won't do such an invasion of privacy to you. Chuhi spoke to comfort Hermione, who was frightened. Hermione breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, her heart was also convinced by Chuhi's gentlemanly demeanor. Hermione had to admit that just chatting with Chuhi like this, her mood was slowly getting better. It's bad. You don't really like him, do you? Yes, what do you think of Professor Lockhart? Hermione changed the subject without leaving a trace. She didn't want to be a bad woman who ruined other people's relationships. Besides, things like relationships aren't all smooth sailing. As long as Cassandra quarrels with Chuhi, then she will be on her own. It's justifiable to attack Chuhi. The first school year is not long since the start of the school, and he still has a great chance. Lockhart, I suspect that his legends are all deceptive. Even to be polite, his strength is difficult to survive in the hands of werewolves and other creatures. You can also see that he can stand there. If he misses, if he really encounters dangerous magical creatures, those magical creatures will not give him a second chance. But what's written in those books is very, very real. If he hadn't experienced it himself, how could he have written such a real sense of picture? Hermione was a little disappointed, but she was more inclined to believe Chuhi's judgment. After all, what Chuhi said was very reasonable. In the previous magical duel, Lockhart's performance was really unsatisfactory. Well, there is a reasonable explanation, but it's just my personal speculation. Tell me. Hermione looked at Chuhi curiously. Do you know the pensieve? Chuhi asked. Knowing, it is the kind of memory that can store excess memory in the brain, which can be used to analyze the huge thoughts stored in it in free time or recall those memories through situational reproduction. People who enter the pensieve to read the memory will not be noticed by the original owner of the memory. Arrive. Ah, are you saying that Lockhart visited wizards who had been through these things, begging them to share their adventures, and to watch the stories through the pensieve in a way that third parties couldn't be harmed? Hermione guessed suddenly. I think it's possible, although I can't be 100% sure. If we really want to know, we can check to see if there is a pensieve in Professor Lockhart's personal belongings. Chuhi shrugged. Yes, but if he stole the memories of other wizards to write books, why didn't those wizards come out to break him down? Hermione was a little puzzled. It may be that Lockhart used an oblivion spell on them to make them forget their relevant memories, and because they didn't know, they didn't come out to expose him. Well, then, why did the wizards want to share these memories with him? Hermione still couldn't let it go. After all, Lockhart was her former idol. Look at this. Chuhi took out the Order of Merlin First Class from his pocket and waved the green sash in front of Hermione. My God. It's the first-class medal of the Order of Merlin, a medal of honor that is usually only awarded to dead people, and you got it at the age of 9. Hermione covered her mouth admiringly. Look, if I come to visit you politely at this time, it means that I am very interested in your past adventures. Would you like to share it with me? Chuhi asked. Of course I do. Those who can receive the Merlin Order of Merlin have made great contributions in the wizarding world. If such people want to share my proud memories with me, of course I am willing. Hermione answered without hesitation. That's why most wizards value glory. When a famous wizard comes to visit him, he will more or less relax his vigilance, thinking that this person is famous and won't sneak up on him. And then when they finished sharing their memories, Lockhart was able to sneak up on them with an oblivion spell while saying compliments. Well, of course this is just my subjective assumption, I can't say that Lockhart did this, it's just one of them possibility. Chuhi shrugged. He had seen the award record when he went to Wizengamot to receive the Order of Merlin First Class. Among them, Gilderoy Lockhart had won a third-class Order of Magic, so he came to the above conjecture. Of course, it is also possible that Lockhart is very good at legilimency, forcibly read the relevant adventures from the memory of others, and then uses the forgetting spell to make the other party forget. But as far as Lockhart's wand control level is concerned, he thinks it's hard to hit people without sneak attack, so Chuhi is more inclined to the first guess. Hey, I didn't expect him to be such a person, disillusioned. Hermione looked sad. As someone who likes books very much, she was attracted by the wonderful adventures in Lockhart's book, but now she learned that what was written in her idol book was written in large part from others through despicable means. The memories she gained made her feel very sad. I don't dare to assert now, do you want to investigate? But secretly investigating the professor's privacy is a very excessive thing, if it is discovered. Hermione froze for a moment and said hesitantly. But she herself is quite adventurous, not to mention with Chuhi, so she is a little bit looking forward to it. Don't worry, as long as you don't get discovered, you won't be punished. I happen to have an illusion spell that can make people invisible. At Lockhart's level, they can't see through my spell. Chuhi answered confidently. After all, Lockhart pretended to force himself in front of him before, and even if he lost the fight, he boasted that he let him go, so even if Lockhart gave Slytherin extra points, he was very unhappy with Lockhart. Then, let's try it out. In the end, curiosity and trust in Chuhi prevailed. Hermione demanded. Well, Chuhi took out his chestnut wand, and the tip of the wand lightly tapped on Hermione's shoulder, and then Hermione felt a cold magic gushing out from the tip of Chuhi's wand like a liquid, and then quickly covered his body. Is this the illusory body curse? Hermione whispered excitedly. She had never been exposed to this spell, and generally only students above 6th grade could master this spell, but she never thought that she would be able to experience the actual effect of using it in 1st grade. Yeah, in principle, our body is integrated with the surrounding environment through magic coverage, which is similar to the chameleon in the Muggle world, but the disguise of the disillusionment charm is far more than that of Muggle chameleons. As Chuhi spoke, he pointed the tip of his wand on himself, and cast an illusion spell on himself. The two then walked towards the outside of the Hogwarts library. While passing by the librarian, Emma Erpins, Hermione waved mischievously at Mrs. Pins, and then made a cute face, but Mrs. Pins did not respond to her behavior, because she did not look at it. Missing Hermione. Hermione, who walked out of the Hogwarts library, decided that if there is a chance in the future, she must master this magic called the disillusionment spell, and be able to become invisible. This is too cool. Although Hermione doesn't currently want to use the disillusionment charm, she really enjoys mastering new spells. If I don't know if I go to ask Chuhi, will he teach himself this spell? Hermione looked forward to it. The two quickly returned to the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. The Defense Against the Dark Arts professor's office is actually in the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. On the other side of the podium, there is a small spiral staircase, which leads to the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor's office. At this time, since it had been a long time since the get out of class ended, there was no one else in the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom, only the door of the professor's office was opened. Hermione and Chuuhi could hear Lockhart's furious voice. "Those two little fools. Why are you trying to get along with me on purpose?" Then came the sound of a vessel being shattered. Chuuhi and Hermione looked at each other. Chuuhi thinks that Lockhart is a little too stupid. If he is, even if he wants to vent his anger, he will use silent and invisible solidification to prevent others from breaking into his room and hearing his own voice. Only then can this be possible. Yelling and yelling to vent. Hermione, on the other hand, was even more disillusioned with Lockhart. The heroic wizard he longed for, he looked handsome and generous in front of him, but behind his back was a cheapskate who couldn't even tolerate the offense of two children. A coward who speaks ill of people. He didn't even dare to look at Cassandra in class, he only dared to do it behind his back. The heroic look that Lockhart has always created is completely inconsistent. To be honest, Hermione was very disappointed with Lockhart. Then Chuuhi waved to Hermione, and the two slowly walked up the stone spiral staircase, quietly pushed Lockhart's door open, and the two walked into Lockhart's room. Watching the door of his office open without any wind, Lockhart suddenly fell silent, his bright eyes looking around in fear like a frightened hamster. "Ahahaha, Chuuhi, I know it's you, stop joking with me," Lockhart said suddenly. Hermione was startled, but before she could shout, Chuuhi's hand had covered her mouth, and a silent spell covered their bodies, and Hermione's ear Chuuhi's calm voice came. "Don't be afraid, he's cheating on us and didn't find us." Chuuhi's words seemed to have an unbelievable magic power, which made Hermione calm down immediately, and she realized that Lockhart was not looking in the direction where she and Chuuhi were, but in the direction of his office door. And Lockhart, who didn't get it, had a cold sweat on his forehead. "Cassandra." Lockhart's voice was shaking a little by now, and he was actually afraid of such an unexplainable thing. Naturally, Cassandra, who was resting in the Slytherin common room, couldn't answer Lockhart. "Ahahahaha, I must be too nervous, too tired, this is Hogwarts, the safest place for wizards, ahahaha, take a nap, I'll just go to sleep, everything will be fine tomorrow." Lockhart walked out of the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor's office with a wand in his hand, then closed the stone door and quickly fled to his dormitory. At this time, Hermione, who was covering her mouth by Chuuhi, was blushing. This is a super close physical contact, right? She found that she didn't hate being treated in such a rough way by Chuuhi at all, and even wished that Chuuhi could cover her mouth with her hand for a longer time. But to Hermione's slight regret, after Lockhart left, Chuuhi let go. "Sorry, it would have been a little troublesome if you screamed just now, so I covered your mouth." Chuuhi apologized. Although he said that silence can block most of the voices, if Hermione fell into panic and screamed and did something uncontrollable, the phantom spell might be broken, so he just used his hands covered Hermione's mouth. It's okay, I'm too nervous," Hermione spoke quickly. "Then check his personal belongings a little bit." Chuuhi started looking around. The walls of Lockhart's office are full of his pictures, which, although enchanted and moving, actually have no self-awareness and intelligence recording functions, unlike some of the portraits on the walls of Hogwarts Castle. After all, some of those portraits are leftovers from the souls of people who have died, so these souls have autonomy and can remember things. And Gilderoy Lockhart's portraits and photos are simply the application of movable magic. So even if Chuuhi and Hermione were doing something here, the photos wouldn't be recorded to let Lockhart know what he found in his office. Not to mention, these photos and portraits of Lockhart, after the real Lockhart escaped, they each also escaped into the invisible range in the photos. Just like the real Lockhart. He's really timid. Hermione looked at Lockhart, who had long since disappeared in the picture on the wall, with disdain. "You wouldn't have such poor spell control if you were daring, well, found it, a pensieve." Chuuhi took out a pensieve from Lockhart's box. Although generally speaking, pensieves are only available to high-end witches and wizards, but this is not a limitation, as long as you have money, you can still buy it. And Lockhart has published so many best-selling books, it is normal to be able to buy a pensieve, not to mention that this pensieve is indispensable to his career. Want to go in and see? Chuhi asked. Yes, can you? Hermione's eyes suddenly lit up. Compared with Lockhart's words, the memories of those powerful wizards are obviously more exciting, and she dreams of experiencing the sense of adventure that she has experienced in person. Go and see, I'll help you watch the wind, Chuhi said with a smile. What do you think? Throw your face into the water, and you'll enter the memories of those wizards. Chuhi answered. Hermione immediately leaned over to put her consciousness into the pensieve, and began to experience the adventures that the wizards in the book had personally experienced. While Hermione was reading Lockhart's memory in the pensieve, Chuhi began to check various items in Lockhart's office. Despite Lockhart's poor performance in terms of strength, Chuhi will not let his guard down. Because he himself has used the tactic of appearing in front of the prey in the form of a good hunter himself to kill a lot of light-hearted Death Eaters. Although Lockhart's magic power is very poor, he may have something special domain, so Chuhi still checked Lockhart's items carefully. Moreover, Lockhart has already held obvious malice towards him and Cassandra. Chuhi has decided to either find some means to kick him out of Hogwarts, and then get him halfway, or take him as a threat by means of threats and so on. Although Lockhart may not be able to help in combat, as a well-known author in the wizarding world, with his outstanding acting skills and thick skin like a city wall, he may be able to help himself build momentum or guide fishing reels in the future, and arrange him to a suitable place. In terms of location, it may play an unexpected role. 2 hours later, when Hermione lost consciousness from the pensieve excitedly, Chuhi had checked all the items in Lockhart's office, and there was no item that could pose a threat to him, until at this time Chuhi was confirming that Lockhart was not in any danger to him. How did it feel to experience a pensieve for the first time? Chuhi asked with a smile. It's amazing. It's like I've experienced that kind of adventure myself. Thank you, Chuhi, if you hadn't brought me here, I wouldn't have seen something so awesome. Hermione said happily. It's okay, as long as you can be happy, then we should almost leave here. Chuhi opened the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor's office, took Hermione out of the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom, and then released the illusion spell covering the two in a remote place. That Lockhart is so damn it that he took the memories of those brave wizards for himself, and attacked them with the Oblivion Curse. Chuhi, shall we go and sue Headmaster Dumbledore? This will surely teach Lockhart a good lesson. Hermione spoke with Chuhi to discuss it. Well, indeed, Lockhart should be sent to Azkaban for doing such a thing. What kind of place is Azkaban? Why does Lockhart get so scared when Cassandra talks about Azkaban? Hermione asked curiously that although Azkaban was famous in the wizarding world, the books Hermione read did not mention Azkaban in too much detail. This is mainly because people who have been in Azkaban have basically lost their good hopes and memories, and only have cold and sad emotions. Naturally, such a wizard cannot write a book in a good state of mind. Dementors like Chuhi can't help but almost control the freaks, and there is not one in 1,000 years, and Chuhi is not interested in publishing books, so Hermione naturally doesn't know Azkaban. Azkaban, there is a special kind of magical creature called Dementor in that place, which is based on people's happy memories as food, so people who go in will experience the feeling that all the good things disappear from life. Because of this loss it's terrifying, so this prison is terrifying for wizards. Chuhi explained. Wow, you know a lot. Hermione looked at Chuhi in surprise. After all, I went in and lived for a while before I came to Hogwarts. Chuhi's words made the air freeze, and Hermione looked at Chuhi blankly. Come on, are you kidding me? Hermione asked in disbelief. No kidding, I did go to Azkaban before going to Hogwarts. Chuhi answered affirmatively once again. Since she wants to be a friend, Hermione will know about these things sooner or later, so for the same reason, it's better to say it early, so that even if you can't be a friend, the harm to Hermione will be less. In the same way, only by accepting this, Hermione is qualified to be his friend, otherwise the two will part ways. After all, Chuhi is well aware that his values are completely different from the flowers that grow in greenhouses like Hogwarts. Why did you enter Azkaban? Hermione looked at Chuhi with some sadness. I was robbed by 2 Muggle robbers, I cursed them to death, then wanted by the Ministry of Magic and ended up getting caught. Chuhi spread his hands and calmly answered why he was caught in Azkaban. Yuan, that's what it is, really, Don't scare me, I thought you killed a good guy. Hermione breathed a sigh of relief and returned to normal. Hey, can you accept it so quickly? Chuhi was a little surprised by Hermione's acceptance. Well, because it must be impossible, right? You are still so young, if you are threatened by adults, you will definitely be afraid, and then use magic to kill those bad people. I can understand. Hermione nodded. Chuhi was silent for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Although he didn't accidentally kill him because he was afraid of the opponent robbing him, as Hermione said, it was just because he always killed him directly when he encountered someone who wanted to rob him, so the killing was easy. But if the current Hermione knows about this, I'm afraid that friends will really not be able to do it, so I'll be silent here, let her misunderstand, and then slowly let her get used to herself after the relationship is better. But you're also miserable. You obviously killed the bad guys who wanted to rob you, and you were caught in Azkaban. I think those who caught you should think about why they weren't there when you were robbed. Hermione said angrily. Well, the Auror's manpower is relatively short, and it is unlikely to pay attention to a child at ordinary times. Chuhi shrugged. That's why. They will only be there to perform strange justice. They don't show up when you need them. Instead, they arrest you in Azkaban from behind. I don't think you should be sentenced to Azkaban. Cabans. Hermione said it very seriously. You are suing the magic system of the wizarding world. Chuhi laughed, and to be honest, it was the first time he had ever met someone who felt unfair that he had been caught in Azkaban. I just think what they did is really too much. They didn't see them when they were supposed to protect children like you. They suddenly appeared when they arrested you, and they gave you such an excessive punishment. It must be wrong. Hermione said firmly. Well, that's what I said. Let's change the status quo together in the future. If it was you, I think it should be able to create a better environment. Chuhi looked at Hermione and said that he saw a possibility in Hermione. Quote exclamation mark. 1. Change the status quo together. Hermione blushed because of Chuhi's words and lowered her head. 1. Together. What does this mean? Could it be that he will maintain a very close relationship with him in the future? How could it be unpleasant to be said by someone who secretly has a great crush on him? Hermione began to fantasize about what she would do with Chuhi in the future. And she had to admit that, compared to the classmates in Gryffindor who rejected her, sneaking into the professor's office with Chuhi using the phantom spell gave her a strong sense of excitement. She really liked being with Chuhi. Take the risk, now she's starting to regret why she didn't listen to the Slytherin recommended by the Sorting Hat. If he hadn't made a choice based on his desire to come to Gryffindor at that time, he would have been by Chuhi's side. In fact, Hermione, who is admired by the founders of the 4 branches, will be gladly accepted in any branch of Hogwarts who wants to go to Hogwarts, but because Hermione was reading Hogwarts, a history of the school, she was deeply drawn by the Gryffindor in the book. The branch's historical heritage was attractive, so Gryffindor was chosen voluntarily. And Hogwarts is not allowed to be transferred, so even if she regrets it now, she can only continue to study in Gryffindor. In this way, Hermione was sent to the Gryffindor common room by Chuhi in a state of regret and excitement. She didn't even notice that Chuhi followed after her because of these 2 complicated emotions, her communication. After Hermione returned to the Gryffindor common room, Chuhi was thinking about something else on the way back. The reason why he mentioned that he had entered Azkaban, on the one hand, was to resolve the possible estrangement in the middle of being friends with Hermione in advance, and on the other hand, since he planned to accept Lockhart as a dog, he had to temporarily prevent him from entering Azkaban. Because Lockhart was only useful to him because of that fame. If he entered Azkaban, Lockhart would be completely useless, so he changed the subject and made Hermione put down the idea of throwing Lockhart into Azkaban. On the other hand, he saw in Hermione another direction of the future of the wizarding world. If there is a wizard like Hermione who is inclined towards integrity to become the Minister of Magic to manage the magic world, the future of the magic world will be much fairer than it is now. At that time, he who maintains a good relationship with Hermione will also gain a lot of convenience. Therefore, Chuhi is actually playing a big game of chess. Hermione is a very talented wizard, and she has a good relationship with herself. She doesn't get along well with Gryffindor's students. She may become her only friend, so the relationship established is very strong. Although he may be a little sorry for Hermione, unfortunately, his Chuhi's life values were cultivated in places where Death Eaters and dark wizards walk everywhere, and it is impossible to simply believe in friendships that have no interests. So he will use his friendship to a certain extent, but on the contrary, he will also pay equal service to this friendship. For the future, Chuhi actually has some plans. He hopes to eventually train Cassandra to be the queen of the dark wizards, so that Chuhi can enjoy both the dark wizard and the white wizard, without having to bother to deal with the internal generation of the two parties. Question. While enjoying the power on both sides, you can continue to study magic spells to enhance your own strength. The reason why I chose Cassandra to be the queen of the dark wizards is because it is impossible to control the dark wizards by benevolence and integrity. Only the arrogant, strong, confident and self-reliant people like Cassandra can control the dark wizards. Combined with powerful strength, and she is pure blood, she has more advantages than Muggle-born Hermione in this regard. In the future, his main policy is to completely kill Voldemort first, and then while studying forbidden magic, he cultivates Cassandra and Hermione, and at the same time, he secretly promotes the flames to make them reach the top of the Black Wizard and the White Wizard respectively. Although this plan looks huge, Chuhi is very confident in it, because both Hermione and Cassandra are very outstanding talents in the same class. As long as you take one step at a time, it will be achieved one day, own destination. Not to mention that he is already gradually subduing Draco. Lucius is actually very similar in character to Draco. At that time, he will have the support of this pure blood family who has a lot of influence in the wizarding world, plus Gilderoy Lockhart, fame and the influence of Cassandra's own family. The important pieces on the chessboard of the wizarding world have gradually taken their place. After returning to Slytherin's common room, Chuhi lay on the bed and continued to study the attack magic of Shenfeng Wang recorded in his magical notebook by Snape. Although he has mastered a lot of attack magic, it is always good to know more magic, not to mention that he can also gain more knowledge about how magic works from Snape's improvement. The next morning, Chuhi came to the Transfiguration classroom early. And Professor McGonagall, who transformed into a tabby cat through a Gus, was squatting on the podium. As soon as Chuhi came in, he turned into a human form. Professor, this is the detailed explanation of wound removal magic. Can I ask you to negotiate with the magic hospital? Chuhi took out the notes on the study method of improving the spell's injury and passed it to Professor McGonagall. Okay. No problem, Chuhi, you will be the pride of our Hogwarts. McGonagall took the notebook and said happily that she liked Chuhi more and more, not only promoting the development of healing magic, but also exposing Voldemort's conspiracy. Even though Chuhi was assigned to Slytherin, she still likes Chu very much. This student. I'm very happy to be the pride of Hogwarts. Chuhi replied politely, and then began to discuss with Professor McGonagall the various principles of Agus. The reason why he wants to improve Agus is that after Agus transforms, he will acquire the special ability of the transformed species, as well as the group language, and can even communicate with creatures of the same species. If he transforms into some powerful magical creatures, he may also acquire the characteristics of those magical creatures. To give a simple example, if he can transform into a phoenix through Gus, he can enter the phoenix state in a dying state, and then he may gain the ability to regenerate the phoenix from the ashes, then to a certain extent, he will have the ability to be immortal. McGonagall was also very surprised by the various magic principles proposed by Chuhi, some of which even she did not understand very well. She vaguely felt that Chuhi might be a genius who would change the status quo of the magic world. It's exciting to think about being able to cultivate such a genius, so she gave all of Chuhi's questions. After a day of class, Chuhi sneaked into Lockhart's office with a disillusionment spell after accompanying Cassandra in her daily magic practice. At this time, Lockhart was holding a quill pen and humming a song to sign autographed photos for his fans, and then he suddenly felt a click, and the door of his office was suddenly closed with no wind, which shocked Lockhart suddenly. Ahahaha, again, oh, it looks like I've worked hard today, so it's time to go back to rest now. Lockhart finished talking nervously to the empty air, and then ran to pull the closed door, but Chuhi had previously cast a traceless curing and anti-unlocking spell on the door. Of Alaba hole open. Eventually, Lockhart pulled out his wand, chanted a spell on the door lock, and was bounced off the wall by a flash of white light. Chu-hee, who was watching with the phantom body spell, was speechless. Even a lock-picking spell, Allaho, could be chanted by Lockhart by mistake. This is true. So embarrassing. No matter who it is, please don't hurt me, don't hurt me. I have a lot of money, I will give it to you. Lockhart, who slid to the ground after hitting the wall, got up from the ground and begged for mercy with his hands folded. He had no way to escape from here, he could only beg for mercy. After seeing that the effect was almost the same, Chu-hee also released the illusion spell on himself, and started talking to Lockhart. Professor Lockhart, you look ugly enough. Ah, Chu-hee, are you here to save me? Hurry up, this office is cursed, take me out, and I'll add all the remaining 15 points to you Slytherin. After seeing Chu-hee, Lockhart immediately rushed over and hugged Chu-hee happily, as if he had grabbed a life-saving straw. Idiot, it's me who's keeping you here, do you understand? A burst of magic power spread out from Chu-hee's body and bounced Lockhart, who forcibly hugged him, to the ground. What? You shut me down, you fool. I'm going to deduct 20 points from your Slytherin. Hearing that it wasn't some evil spirit coming to trouble him, Lockhart was relieved immediately, but then he was filled with absolute anger. He felt that he had been tricked by Chu-hee, and when he was about to get up from the ground, he found he was suppressed by magic and couldn't get up at all, and at this moment Chu-hee stepped on Lockhart's head. My dear Professor Lockhart, you don't seem to understand your current situation. People who dare to talk to me like that, even if you search all the people in Nocturne Alley, you won't be able to find one, do you understand? Chu-hee looked down at Lockhart with icy eyes, and Lockhart shuddered suddenly. Difficult, are you, that, in Nocturne Alley, the legendary, black-haired and silver-eyed, the god of death. Lockhart's angry expression turned to panic. Yo, have you heard my rumors? Yes, you are famous, please don't kill me, I am willing to do anything, and I am willing to dedicate my property to you. After learning that Chu-hee was the god of death with black hair and silver eyes that was said by the black wizards in Nocturne Alley, Lockhart became respectful in his words. Rumors that as long as he wants to kill, he will never escape. I want to kill you, you're dead now, understand? Chu-hee looked at Lockhart under his feet with a half-smile, this kind of timid person, very easy to control. Understand, if you have anything to tell me, I am Lockhart's definition. Go through fire and water, and don't give up. Lockhart, who knew he was going to survive, put on a devoted look. Come on, with your guts, do you believe you can go through fire and water? Chu-hee asked with a sneer. Lockhart was silent. Then what do you want me to do? I'll try my best. Debunked by his gorgeous appearance, Lockhart asked humbly. I want you to be my dog and use it for me. You won't be asked to do it in combat, but as long as there is my order, you must use your influence at any time for my people. Whatever I say, you will what must be done, or else I will expose the contempt you have done to other wizards. And I myself, the god of death with black hair and silver eyes, will also go after you. No one I want to kill can survive under my hands, understand? Chu-hee moved his feet away and said coldly. He had already read Lockhart's mind with the legilimency he just launched through his pupil power. It was indeed as he guessed. Lockhart's biographies were all obtained by deceiving them from other wizards, and then using the Oblivion spell to sneak up on them to seal them up, so he used this double threat to make sure Lockhart wouldn't betray him. Please make me your dog, it's my honor to be your dog. As long as you don't let me fight, I'm willing to use my fame forever for you. Lockhart got up from the ground, put his face on Chu-hee's shoes and offered his loyalty humbly. Dignity. It's worth nothing compared to surviving. What's more, he only offered his loyalty to a powerful death god like Chu-hee, and he could still maintain his dignity and reputation to outsiders. And being able to climb the thigh of a famous death god like Chu-hee is already a gain for him. After all, with Chu-hee as his backstage, neither the Dark Wizard nor the Death Eater dared to touch a finger. Looked up. Chu-hee opened his mouth and ordered. Lockhart immediately looked up at Chu-hee with a flattering smile. And Chu-hee's silver eyes immediately became deep. Lockhart felt that he had established some relationship with Chu-hee, and made him surrender to Chu-hee from the bottom of his heart. Familiar control magic. Yes, when we meet in the future, you should treat me like an ordinary student, don't use your name, and don't put on such an overly respectful look, understand? Chuhee opened his mouth and ordered. Then, how can I do it? I am your loyal servant, how dare I be so rude to you? Lockhart showed resistance, and Chuhee had a smile in his eyes. This is the effect of family domination. Previously, under his own deterrence, Lockhart absolutely did not dare to raise objections to himself, but under the absolute domination relationship of the family domination, he would be dissatisfied with his order due to the reason of being dominated. It means that the effect of the family's control magic is very good. You dare to question my order. Chuhee spoke again. My subordinates dare not. Lockhart bowed his head again and kissed Chuhee's little leather shoes to show respect and surrender. Thanks for watching, please subscribe and support my channel. Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobook. Hogwarts. Start in Azkaban. Chapter 51. Anyway, it would be weird for a professor to be too respectful to a student, so you can't be too respectful to me. Chuhee ordered again. Yes, my subordinates understand. Lockhart nodded reluctantly. Then now, get up. Lockhart stood up obediently. Seeing the respect in Lockhart's eyes, Chuhee was very satisfied. He wasn't afraid of Dumbledore's use of legilimency on Lockhart to find out what he had left behind to dominate magic. On the one hand, the family control magic was a magic he developed alone, and Dumbledore didn't know it at all, and it was difficult to find it. On the other hand, people like Quirrell and Lockhart can sneak into Hogwarts. Obviously, Dumbledore will not spy on other people's memories through legilimency under normal circumstances, probably because he is too special. Dumbledore only then will I try to use legilimency on myself. Of course, the magic of family control does not mean that you can control others to become your own family at will, but it depends on a person's willpower and mental strength. Like a Dementor, it took a long time for him to be unable to control a single one. Only. The reason why Lockhart can easily dominate is because on the one hand, he is very timid and weak in will, plus he used the threat of death and ruining his reputation to almost destroy Lockhart's will, so he can dominate Lockhart so easily. The stronger the willpower, the better able to resist this magic. Therefore, in the course of the battle, the magic of the family's control basically does not play a big role. Okay, then you can take care of your own image, and don't just ask questions about your own preferences in class like before, and try to teach the students some theoretical knowledge of defense against the dark arts. Chuhee asked for it. Okay, I will try my best to complete the task you have given me, my master. Lockhart said humbly. Also, Hermione and I learned yesterday that what you wrote in your book was deceived from other wizards, and she was thinking yesterday about whether to expose you and throw you in Azkaban. Ah, this, master. You must save me, don't let me be locked in Azkaban. Once I am locked in, I can't help you. Lockhart pleaded pale. Don't worry, since I'm going to use you, I won't throw you into Azkaban. I changed the topic yesterday, so she didn't plan to expose you for the time being, but it's definitely not the end of it. I will tell Hermione that you are very regretful and ashamed for what you have done before, and then bring her here. When you cooperate with my proposal, I think Hermione should be able to give up reporting you. Okay, I'll listen to you. Lockhart nodded again and again. Chuhee turned around and waved his hand, lifted the traceless curing spell and anti-unlocking spell that blocked the door of the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor's office, and then left the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. After arriving at the library, Hermione was already waiting for him in the old place holding a magic book. Chuhee, I still don't think it's good that Lockhart's soul is so impunity. He has done such excessive things to those heroic wizards, and he enjoys money and fame. This is too much. Even if he doesn't give him away in Azkaban, I think he should be punished as well. As soon as Chuhee sat down, he heard Hermione say, as he guessed, Hermione didn't let Lockhart go easily. Yeah, actually, I went to Lockhart just now, and he wants to see you and me. Why don't we go and see what's going on now? Chuhee asked. It is good. Hermione closed the magic book, put it on the shelf, and then went to the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom with Chuhee. After Chuhee and Hermione walked into Lockhart's office, Lockhart carefully closed the door and then put on a sad face. Chuhee, Hermione, I know the two of you have discovered my secret. I have to admit that I have done a lot to some wizards. Please forgive me, Please don't tell me, Azkaban is real, it's too terrifying. If I go in, I will definitely die. You don't want to watch me die, right? Lockhart watched Hermione plead. Then, you show those wizards the memories in those pensieves, and let them recall the memories forgotten by your forgetting spell, and I won't tell you. Hermione demanded that as long as those wizards looked at the memories in the Lockhart pensieve, they would surely be able to recall their former glory. Then, in that case, they will tell me to go to Azkaban. Can we change the compromise? Lockhart looked at Chuhi with a sad face. Cough, I have a proposal, Hermione, please listen to it. Chuhi said. Okay, tell me. Hermione felt that the solution Chuhi came up with must be very good, and calmed down. Actually, after Lockhart is reported, his property will be confiscated by the Ministry of Magic, and the victim wizards will at most look at the memories in his pensieve and recall their own memories, but they will not receive any compensation. Although Lockhart's personality is not very good, his writing is still very attractive, and his books are very popular in the wizarding world and make a lot of money. Instead of the original owners of these memories, they couldn't write such a best-selling book like Lockhart, and this memory couldn't bring them any profit. In fact, before Lockhart wrote these books, Hermione, you didn't know these wizards' deeds. Chuhi looked at Hermione and asked. Is such that? Hermione nodded. Then I think it can be a win-win situation. Lockhart will still sell books as normal in the future, but half of the manuscript fee will be sent to the wizards whose memories you have erased with the forgetting curse, as your reward for using their memories. In this way, although the owners of the memory have forgotten this part of the memory, they have obtained a better life, and Lockhart, you can also keep your reputation and not be locked in Azkaban, and you can still sell books to make money in the future, forming a win-win situation. That's a good idea, I'll take it. What about you, Professor Lockhart? Hermione's eyes lit up. This kind of win-win can also be regarded as a long-term physical subsidy for the victimized wizards, and Lockhart has also changed from a bullying position to a position of working for those wizards. In her opinion, this is a very suitable treatment plan. Okay, I'm willing to. In order not to make Hermione suspicious, Lockhart deliberately hesitated, and finally agreed. In fact, as long as it is Chuhi's order, due to the domination of his family, even if he is asked to hand over all his savings, he can't resist, and now he only offers half of the manuscript fee to those wizards, which he can completely accept. As long as you don't throw him in Azkaban, everything is fine. After all, as long as he is not thrown in and his fame is not exposed, he can make money by writing any book. Then ask Professor Lockhart to remember to keep the remittance slips in the future, and Hermione will randomly go to Gringotts at some point to investigate the authenticity of these remittance slips, and also ask Professor Lockhart to remit the money to the victim wizards. Chuhi proposed again. Okay. Lockhart bowed his head dejectedly, while Hermione was very satisfied, so that Lockhart could not secretly send less money or not send money. Sure enough, Chuhi is very smart. If she wanted to think about it, she would definitely not be able to come up with such a good idea. Then Professor Lockhart, let's get along well from now on. Lockhart pretended to be terrified and nodded. Hermione gave Lockhart a slightly disdainful look, then followed Chuhi away. She never imagined that the person she once worshipped as a hero was actually such a bad person and timid. At this time, Chuhi, who was walking in front of her, was much better than him. He's smart, he's also very powerful, and he knows more about magic than himself. He's the one he should worship. By the way, Chuhi, didn't you ask me to study the principles of magic before? I tried to study it, can you tell me what I don't understand? Hermione asked. Sure. Chuhi agreed, and then the two came to the courtyard of the Hogwarts atrium to find a bench. Chuhi patiently told Hermione about the improvement of the spell. Traitor, she's a traitor to Gryffindor. I saw her mingling with Slytherin students yesterday. How could she be assigned to our Gryffindor? Why don't a guy who likes to show off like her hate Slytherin, so he likes to hang out with Slytherin? He must be the traitor Slytherin broke into our side. That's right, I think I know everything all day long, and being complacent is as boring as a fox. When returning to the girls' dormitory, Hermione heard the whispers in the dormitory, and her mood suddenly turned a little worse. Can't the friendly exchanges between the classmates of the branch The founders of the four branches Slytherin, Gryffindor and Ravenclaw Hufflepuff are all good friends. You narrow-minded idiots. Hearing the increasingly unpleasant exchange, Hermione couldn't help rushing back to the girls' dormitory and yelling at the other Gryffindor first-year girls. However, these girls just gave Hermione a cold look, and then turned their backs to sleep without even arguing with Hermione. Feeling cold and violent, Hermione had to drag her heavy body onto her bed, looking forward to falling asleep earlier and seeing Chuhi tomorrow. She only needs the approval of Chuhi alone. She doesn't know the eyes of these classmates. She doesn't care. At this time, Chuhi was leaving the Hogwarts library with a forbidden book. After obtaining permission to enter and borrow books from Dumbledore's forbidden area, he naturally wouldn't leave such a large treasure trove unused. Whether or not he can find the mystery of Voldemort's immortality, let's not talk about it. If he has mastered a dozen or 20 forbidden spells, even if Voldemort is really resurrected, so many forbidden spells will be enough for him to drink a pot. After all, the magic of the ancient forbidden spell has exceeded the scope of ordinary magic. Just then, Chuhi found a huge mirror in front of a passage. The sub-curses on the frame seem to be in random order, but if they are arranged in reverse order, what I show is not your face, but the desire in your heart. Of course, what attracted Chuhi was not the reversed text, but the very powerful magic attached to the mirror. Types include, but are not limited to, fantasy magic, space magic, legimerch, mirror magic, and more. There is no doubt that this is a very powerful magical tool, and it is estimated that it was taught by some professor in the school. It is not realistic to take it away secretly. It may be uneconomical to fall out with Dumbledore because of this. After all, the restricted area of the Hogwarts library is now open to him, so he just intends to observe it temporarily. The magic attached to the mirror. What? It doesn't matter at this point, Chuhi found something familiar. There was a red irregular stone with a slight magical glow, and he also had a piece in his pocket. That was the one that the owner, Bo Jin, mentioned to himself in the Bo Jin box store at the time, the magic stone. Hey, no. Although he bought a counterfeit product at the time, he planned to find out when he was lucky and then drop the package, but he didn't expect to find the real one just after buying a fake product. But it's rare to see the real thing, so you shouldn't hesitate. Let's talk about it. The value of the magic stone is too great. Chuhi pretended not to notice and turned to leave, then entered the boys' bathroom at Hogwarts, then quickly cast a disillusionment spell on himself, and then came to the mirror again, and then took out from his pocket the fake Borgin maid was swapped with the Philosopher's Stone in the mirror. Afterwards, Chuhi went back to the boys' bathroom to release the illusory body charm, and returned to Slytherin's common room with the forbidden magic book he borrowed from the library in a leisurely manner. The reason why he deliberately left the mirror and hung the illusionary charm and went back was to prevent any magic recording device around. Although his detection magic did not detect such a device nearby, it was always good to be careful. And in this way, even if there is a magic recording device, it can become his evidence, because he did nothing on the bright side, just took a look and left the mirror. In this way, even if the owner of the Philosopher's Stone finds that his Philosopher's Stone has been stolen, he cannot be sure that it is him, because he just glanced at the mirror, and there must be many people like him, so it is hard to doubt to his own head. Chuhi, who returned to the Slytherin common room with the Philosopher's Stone, was not in a hurry to study the properties of the Philosopher's Stone. After all, if this kind of treasure leaks, it is likely to cause an investigation by the owner of the Philosopher's Stone. He plans to study this Philosopher's Stone after the end of the semester and after leaving Hogwarts for winter vacation. After all, the detailed explanation of the magic doll refining does not cooperate with other ancient alchemy introductions, and I can't understand the professional terms in it at all. Having said that, with such a legendary treasure on his body, it is very difficult to hold back from looking at it. However, Chuhi is also a person who has seen the world, and soon turned his attention to the ancient forbidden spell magic book introduced from the library. After all, no matter how precious the Philosopher's Stone is, it is a supplementary item at best, but mastering the forbidden spell is a real way to gain real power. In contrast, the forbidden spell was even more attractive to him. Chuhi, today is a broomstick class with Gryffindor. Can you ride a broomstick? Early in the morning, Chuhi had just left the boys' dormitory and came to the common room area, when he heard Cassandra, who was sitting on the sofa in a domineering posture, ask himself, while several other Slytherin girls were standing behind the sofa, apparently tamed by Cassandra. Recently, Chuhi and Cassandra have been training in magical duels every day after class, and the relationship between the two is developing rapidly. Is it okay? The extent to which you can fly. Chuhi spread his hands and answered casually. He really did not study the broom very carefully, because it is not very reliable. Once the broom is damaged, it is difficult to fly into the sky, and it is easy to be attacked by people with confusion charm, thus falling from the sky. In order to prevent losses in air combat, he developed an anti-gravity magic, which can offset his own gravity with magic, and then provide propulsion by releasing the direction of magic, which is much better than broomsticks, so there is no particular connection to the control of the broomstick. After all, he trained with actual combat as the starting point. With better skills, naturally he would not deliberately learn useless things. Then who can fly faster than one today? Cassandra excitedly invited. After all, she has never defeated Chuhi in the magical duel after the course every day, and she wants to win Chuhi once. She is still very confident in flying brooms. After all, when she was a child, she admired sitting on a broom and flying in the sky, so she had trained well at home before. Hey, but I want to read a magic book today. I just borrowed a forbidden book from the library yesterday. The librarian, Mrs. Pants, asked me to return it today. Chuhi said with some trouble. Well, if that's the case, then you can read it, but when you read the spell book in flying class, won't Mrs. Hauchi deduct our Slytherin points? Cassandra asked that she still cherishes honor and wants to win the Academy Cup. Probably not. After all, I have already mastered what she is going to teach in class. Chuhi thought for a while and answered. Most of the professors at Hogwarts are still very good. Basically, as long as you have mastered what they teach, you can freely spend your time in class to learn new things. That's good. Cassandra nodded, and she planned to remind Chuhi a little to respect the professor. Good morning, Chuhi. Draco walked out of the boys' dormitory with Goyle and Crabbe, and then greeted Chuhi respectfully. After actually getting along for a while, he found that Chuhi was actually a good talker. As long as he honestly asked something he didn't understand, he would tell himself generously and didn't care about his behavior in the wand shop at the time. He has gradually been convinced by Chuhi's charisma and began to respect Chuhi subconsciously. Good morning. Chuhi nodded slightly in response to Draco, and then went to the restaurant with the magic book. Draco watched Chuhi leave with respect. Hey, Draco, now you know how good Chuhi is. Cassandra looked at Draco with satisfaction. Yes, I was really rude at the time, and I said so much to you and Chuhi at Ollivander's wand shop, please forgive me. Draco honestly apologized, but he was still a little dissatisfied with Cassandra, more because of his fear of his family. Since the last time Lucius brought him home from Ollivander's wand shop, he had told him about the power of the Cassandra family. The Cassandra family is an ancient pure-blood family in the wizarding world. It can be traced back to the 13th century. In the 13th century, the contemporary head of the Cassandra family, Cassandra Vabrisky, was the legendary one, confidant of the wizard Prince Merlin. With this status, they overwhelmed the Malfoy family by several layers. Although the Cassandra family is very powerful, it is an extremely low-key family, but the wizards and witches who come out of this family will be very good talents. The most important thing is that Voldemort did not enslave the Cassandra family at that time. Lucius speculated that it was not that Voldemort did not want to, but that he was afraid of something. So after returning from Ollivander's wand shop that day, after visiting Azkaban Warden Ludmus, Lucius taught Draco a good lesson. So for Cassandra, Draco is more afraid of the huge family power behind her. On the grass in the atrium of Hogwarts, the students of Gryffindor and Slytherin were divided into two sides to fight, each with a training broom on the ground beside his right hand. Intimate chat. And Cassandra was surrounded by a group of fresh Slytherin girls, talking about the flying skills of broomsticks. Only Hermione stood alone at the end of the Gryffindor's line, and no other students came to chat with him. But Hermione was not in a bad mood at this time, because there was a person on the opposite side who had no one to communicate with. That person was Chuhi, who was reading with a book of forbidden spells. Hermione couldn't help remembering what Chuhi had told herself, that mediocre people would envy the talented. Looking at Cassandra, who was surrounded by girls, Hermione felt that a person like herself who likes to study knowledge is worthy of Chuhi, but unfortunately she didn't bring a book with her today, so she had to look at Chuhi. He has. Good morning, students. Rolanda Huauchi, a broomstick professor wearing a black robe, walked quickly into the space separating the Gryffindor and Slytherin branches. Good morning, Mrs. Hooch. The students of the two branches also politely said good morning to Mrs. Huauchi. Welcome to your first flying lesson. Next, I want you to put your right hand on top of the broom and say, get up. Rise. Gryffindor and Slytherin's first-year freshmen spoke at the same time, and then Harry Potter, Cassandra, and Chuhi's brooms were grabbed by the three of them at the first sound, and the rest of the students were still calling hard. Your own training broom. After a few more shouts, Draco grabbed the broom too. Mrs. Hooch looked at Chuhi and the three of them happily. There are so many students in the first year who are so good at flying broomsticks. It seems that they can look forward to the Quidditch match in 2 years. As a professor of broomstick class, she is a super fanatic of Quidditch, and she is the judge of the Quidditch matches at Hogwarts over the years as long as there are no accidents. Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Hermione's tone gradually became furious, because the other students around her basically grabbed their broomsticks, but she, a self-proclaimed top student, failed to grab her own broomstick. With a thud, the broom next to Ronald knocked on his head uncontrollably, which made Hermione feel a lot more comfortable. After all, Ronald often spoke ill of her. And in this case, Hermione managed to grab her broom with a snap. Okay, since everyone has got the broom, then ride on the broom. You must hold on tight, it will hurt a lot if you fall from a height. Mrs. Hooch opened her mouth to advise. The students from the two branches stepped on the broom with great anticipation, and hugged the wooden pole of the broom tightly. Only Chuhi sat gracefully on the broom. Chuhi, I hope you can do as I say. If you fall down because of your wrong posture, I won't send you to the infirmary. Mrs. Hooch looked at Chuhi and reminded. Isn't it enough to be able to fly? I feel very uncomfortable sitting on it. While Chuhi was talking, the broom carried Chuhi steadily into the air. Mrs. Hooch was speechless on the spot. What kind of broom controlling ability is this? This balance ability is too terrifying. Even her, trying to achieve this level is not enough. She can't teach a student better than herself. Mrs. Hooch, I'm coming to your class, but I'm not planning on participating in any Quidditch matches, so you can just put me aside and ignore it. As Chuhi spoke, he took out the forbidden spell book from the forbidden area from his pocket and read it. He really felt uncomfortable straddled on a broomstick. He was flustered, and he didn't mean to go against Mrs. Hooch. He just didn't intend to hurt himself because of the Hogwarts professor. At this time, both the girls from Gryffindor and Slytherin branch all looked at Chuhi, who was sitting on the broom reading, with glittering eyes. This was too elegant, right? Cough. You give me an honest straddle on the broom. Chuhi has a very strong balance ability to sit on the broom like this. If you dare to sit like that, you will definitely fall into a daze. Quote. Mrs. Hooch scolded the other students, and at this moment, an embarrassed figure staggered into the sky holding a broom. Mr. Longbottom, get me down now, lean forward, and control the broom to land back to the ground. Mrs. Hooch opened her mouth to teach Neville, but due to the uncontrolled liftoff, Neville was completely panicked, just screamed in a panic, while the broom was carrying him higher and higher. Soon, Neville turned into a small black spot high in the sky. The students on the side were all nervous. If they fell, they would be half crippled if they didn't die, right? Is broomstick class so dangerous? What a rash. Mrs. Hooch raised her hand, and a training broom flew into her hand, and then Mrs. Hooch straddled the broom and quickly took off to chase Neville. Mr. Longbottom, keep calm and come down with me. As a broomstick class professor, Mrs. Hooch was naturally very good at flying, and easily caught Neville in the air. However, just as Neville breathed a sigh of relief, the broom under him suddenly spun around again, and then threw Neville off the broom. Mrs. Hooch quickly grabbed Neville's wizard's robe, but with a squeak, the wizard's robe made a tearing sound, and then Neville fell vertically to the ground like a small cannonball. Madame Hooch couldn't react for a while because of this sudden situation, and just stared blankly at the half of the wizard's robe left in her hand. It wasn't until the students below screamed that Mrs. Hooch came to her senses and planned to rescue Neville, but with the speed she was riding on this training broom, it was too late to catch up with Neville, who fell. For a time, Mrs. Hooch's face was pale. She did not expect that one day a student would die because of her own mistake. Slow down. Chu-hee, who was sitting on the broom, raised his hand to the falling Neville, and then chanted a spell. Then Neville, who was in free fall, quickly slowed down, and finally stopped at a height of more than 10 centimeters above the ground. Time to hover completely in the air. Neville hurriedly stretched out his hands and feet to support his body, and then the invisible magic power dragging him disappeared. After keeping his feet on the ground, Neville rolled over and lay on the ground, gasping for breath. And Mrs. Hooch, who saw this scene in the sky, was relieved and returned to the ground on her broomstick. The reason why she didn't use this shock-absorbing spell to help Neville was because the situation was so urgent that she didn't have time to pull out her wand to release the spell. On the other hand, when Neville was flying in the sky, it was very difficult to lock the trajectory. Even she could not ensure that her shock-absorbing spell would hit Neville accurately, so she directly rode a broom to save people, but she didn't expect it nearly killed Neville Longbottom. She never imagined that a young child like Chu-hee could have such terrifying magic control and aiming ability, not to mention that he didn't seem to draw his wand at all. Is this wandless casting? No wonder Chu-hee had time to cast a spell to save people. Looking at Chu-hee, who was sitting on a broomstick in the sky and continued to read the forbidden magic book, Mrs. Hooch was left in awe. This child, Chu-hee, has a bright future. Chu-hee, thank you. Neville, who was lying on the ground, thanked Chu-hee, who was sitting on his broom, gratefully. He had just started to live the revolving light of his life. If Chu-hee wasn't there, he might have fallen to his death here today. No thanks, they are all classmates. Chu-hee waved his hand casually. He is not the kind of character who can't help himself. If he is not an enemy, if he can save a life easily, he will naturally help. Student Chu-hee did a very good job. He saved his classmates through his superb magic spell skills. I decided to add 20 points to Slytherin. After all, Chu-hee saved a life, and Mrs. Hooch immediately decided to give Chu-hee all the bonus points she could give in a year. Thank you, Professor. Chu-hee thanked him politely. Can your future classmates ask you to watch too? Mrs. Hooch asked. Of course there is no problem, but it's better to let all the students lift off one by one. If more than 3 people fall off the broom at the same time, it will be a little troublesome. Chu-hee said. The shock-absorbing spell still has to lock on the target, and even with his spell control and concentration, it will be a bit difficult to deal with a target of more than 3 people. Chu-hee's words startled Mrs. Hooch on the spot. The mind is divided into 3 parts, coupled with the strong ability to control the broom. How talented this year's freshmen should be in magic. Afterwards, Gryffindor and Slytherin students divided into groups of 3 and ascended to the sky in turn. With the assurance that Chu-hee was watching, everyone's previous psychological shadows due to Neville were dispelled. After all, Chu-hee was watching. Surely they won't fall to their death. You are too modest, and you say that you can fly. Isn't this very good? Cassandra dexterously flew to Chu-hee's side on a broom, and said a little unwillingly. Well, compared to other aspects, broomsticks are indeed the worst subject I use. Chu-hee replied while looking at the forbidden spell book. Are you trying to piss people off? Cassandra felt her frustration for the first time. I don't intend to make you angry, but when you can dodge all my attacks by instinct in a magic duel, you should be able to do the same thing as me. Although this is related to magic control, but it's more about balance control of your own body. Chu-hee explained. You wait, one day I will be better than you. Cassandra said seriously. I look forward to that day. Chu-hee smiled slightly. He is not a competitive person, he is usually quite easygoing. Hey, here you should show your energy and say that you won't let me surpass it, and then practice hard. You don't give me any sense of accomplishment. Cassandra angrily poked Chu-hee's cheek with her slender fingers. Even if you say so, the broomstick is just a means of travel for me. Avada eats a big melon. A green magic light flew out from the woods in the distance, and hit Cassandra's back with lightning speed and precision. Chuhi grabbed Cassandra and pulled it into his arms fiercely. A quick pan on the right side dodged the green death curse. Then Chuhi threw the forbidden magic book to the side with his left hand, and then pressed down with one hand. A small mountain-like meteor suddenly appeared in the air, directly suppressing the area where the green light flew out. Thank you, thank you. Cassandra, who was held in Chuhi's arms, thanked her in cold sweat. She didn't expect that she was only one step away from death. Mrs. Hooch, someone is using a death-killing spell in the school. Please arrange for the students to take refuge immediately, and then notify Principal Dumbledore to investigate the matter. Okay. Mrs. Hooch hurriedly greeted the freshmen of the two branches and landed on the ground. Chuhi also controlled the broom and returned to the ground. Cassandra's face was somewhat pale, and she was obviously scared by the sudden death curse. Then Chuhi and Mrs. Hooch escorted the students back to the common room of their respective branches. I'm going to see who wants to attack you. When Chuhi was about to leave Slytherin's common room, Cassandra grabbed the hem of his clothes. Don't go, stay with me for a while. Cassandra asked with some fear. It is good. Chuhi sat beside Cassandra. Cassandra said nothing, her slender body just kept shaking. The life-suppressing curse, that is the life-suppressing curse, the terrifying curse that kills those who are recruited. Even as proud as she is, she will feel fear in the face of death. Without Chuhi, she couldn't imagine what she would be like now. There was a warm feeling on the back of her hand, and then Cassandra found Chuhi's hand on the back of her hand. Don't worry, I will protect you and won't let others hurt you. Well, thank you. I'm fine. If you want to go and see the situation, just go, but pay attention to safety and promise me not to mess around. Cassandra exhorted that this warm feeling dispelled her fear, she was not so afraid anymore. I know, this necklace is given to you. In the future, I hope you can wear it whenever you want. It has some defensive magic in it. Chuhi took off the silver necklace hanging around his neck and put it in Cassandra's hands. Then you need this more, take it with you. Cassandra said reluctantly. Don't worry, the anti-curse here is inscribed by myself, and I will make another one in a while. Chuhi smiled slightly, grabbed Cassandra's hand and placed the silver necklace in her petite palm, then turned and left the Slytherin common room. He didn't tell Cassandra that the silver necklace contained most of the counter spells of the lethal spells. It would be bad if Cassandra became too dependent on the silver necklace. Only fear can make people more powerful. As for himself, since he has mastered the anti-curse of magic spells such as life-suppressing spells, he is naturally not afraid of these. The reason why he made a defensive magic tool is only because it can reduce his own magic power consumption at a certain time. After all, in some treacherous areas like Nocturne Alley, a little magic can completely change the situation of a battle. But at Hogwarts, he doesn't need to face a lot of battles, and it doesn't matter if he doesn't have the support of this magic tool in the short term. After Chuhi left, Cassandra looked at the silver necklace in her hand and showed a soft smile, and then put the silver necklace on her fair neck. The warmth from Chuhi's body left on it made her feel at ease. After being informed by Mrs. Hooch, Dumbledore, Snape and Auror Kingsley, who had come to investigate the disappearance of Rita Skeeter, hurried to the scene. Looking at the forest that had been suppressed by meteorites, even Snape had a hint of surprise in his eyes. The power of this magic was very powerful. Dumbledore pulled out his wand and shook slightly, and the huge meteorite like a hill slowly lifted up, and then moved to the side. And among the crushed trees, there was a corpse that had long been crushed into flesh and could not be identified. Mrs. Hooch vomited while holding her broomstick when she saw the bloody scene. Dumbledore's face was very serious, because the corpse had Slytherin's wizard robes on it. Oh, as expected of that kid, it's really ruthless. Kingsley had expected the tragic image in front of him, after all, he knew how powerful Chuhi was. I'm not ruthless, how can I guarantee that other students will not be attacked by the life-suppressing curse? It's you, obviously an Auror, who would allow the dark wizard who can know the life-suppressing curse to appear at Hogwarts, what are you doing? Chuhi's unkind voice came from behind Kingsley. After all, his first friend, Cassandra, almost had an accident, and he was very angry now. Chuhi, it's not Kingsley's fault for this. He came to investigate the disappearance of Rita Skeeter, not to mention that the murderer was wearing Slytherin's wizard robe. He must have sneaked into Hogwarts disguised as a student. Dumbledore spoke up for Kingsley. Then you should search more carefully. Maybe that person, what is his name, is also related to this dark wizard. Rita Skeeter, a reporter from the Daily Prophet, do you remember the one who wanted to interview you that day? Dumbledore asked. Oh, so it's the woman who is as disgusting as a bug. Chuhi made no secret of his distaste for Rita Skeeter, and it was this disgust that made Kingsley dissuade Chuhi from his suspicions. Originally, he still had some doubts about whether Rita's disappearance was related to Chuhi. But now Chuhi expresses a clear disgust, coupled with the appearance of a dark wizard with a life-killing spell on the Hogwarts campus, making him think that the disappearance of Rita Skeeter is related to the dark wizard. So has the identity of the deceased been investigated? Chuhi came to the area that was suppressed by himself with meteorite magic, and carefully observed the corpse of the deceased that had been crushed into flesh. Can't you kill him with attack magic that better preserves the appearance of the corpse? Kingsley grumbled. Lord Auror, please think about it for a while, okay? He was hiding in the woods and attacked and launched a life-threatening spell. I didn't find him hiding there at all. I don't need this area of attack magic to destroy the entire area. Maybe he can escape. Chuhi rolled his eyes at Kingsley, who must have taken it for granted. Severus, you go to inform the deans of other branches to gather students in each branch, count the number of students, and see who is missing. Perhaps, there are already victims. Dumbledore ordered immediately. Snape swung his magic robe and turned quickly towards Hogwarts Castle. Chuhi, you have experienced the scene, can you tell us a little about your feelings? Dumbledore looked at Chuhi. The dark wizard who attacked Cassandra was very strong, and he could hit Cassandra with precision from such a distance. When the life-sucking charm itself was activated, it would cause the wand to drift significantly, but the control is very good, so it can be seen that he is a master. Chuhi answered earnestly that this is also the reason why he directly smashed the curse of destruction in an area, because there may be some death curses that he has never seen before, even if he is hit, he will not feel good of. Among the dark wizards you've killed, what is his strength? Kingsley asked. From the wand control ability, he should be able to rank in the top 10. I haven't personally experienced the power of the magic spell, so I don't know how strong his magic power is, but with such a high wand control power, it is obvious that the life-suppressing spell has not been used less. I think the magic power should also be not too bad. Chuhi answered. There is a dark wizard who can kill the curse at Hogwarts. I may have to report this to the Ministry of Magic and bring some Aurors to protect Hogwarts. If possible, I hope you can come with me, Chuhi. Ministry of Magic. Kingsley asked for it. Why am I going to the Ministry of Magic? What, throwing me in Azkaban because I killed the wizard? Chuhi questioned Kingsley with a sneer. Don't be so excited, you are justifiable for killing the dark wizard. After all, the other party used a death spell, which threatened the lives of other students. I will help you to intercede, but after all, you killed people. Gotta go through the process. Kingsley said. You guys, are you really qualified to judge me? After discovering the incident, you didn't want to solve the incident, but to hold me accountable. The Ministry of Magic really has enough to safeguard the interests of wizards. Chuhi sneered. Other Aurors will investigate this matter, I'm just following the rules. Kingsley said tactfully. Oh, a group of Aurors who can only catch me in groups are qualified to say that they will investigate and solve this matter. I won't go to the Ministry of Magic with you until I completely catch the culprit behind it. To sum up, I want to resist arrest. Kingsley, if you want to take me to the Ministry of Magic, you should gather more Aurors to bring me to the Ministry of Magic by force. Speaking of which, I will not be merciful. Quote. Chuhi said coldly. Dumbledore. Kingsley had no choice but to look at Dumbledore. After all, he really wanted to fight, and he really couldn't beat Chuhi alone. Before the capture of Chuhi, more than 20 Aurors dispatched together to chase and block him, and finally succeeded in catching Chuhi. Not to mention the fact that the destroyed land in front of him proves that Chuhi's magical prowess has increased again. At the moment, only the famous Dumbledore can hold down Chuhi. I also think it's better for Chuhi to stay at Hogwarts now. His strength is very good, and he can also have a high ability to deal with dark wizards. In fact, I think he is indeed better than the average Auror. Little, He has protected one of his classmates, and I also agree that it is better for him to stay. To Kingsley's dismay, Dumbledore, instead of speaking for him, agreed with Chuhi staying at Hogwarts. Dumbledore, who had seen Chuhi's improved Patronus charm, knew very well how much security Chuhi would bring to Hogwarts. For the safety of other students, he naturally wanted to support Chuhi in Hogwarts at this time. TZ. Hey, alright, I'll coordinate with the Ministry of Magic, but after this matter is settled, Chuhi, you have to go to the Ministry of Magic with me, or it may cause all kinds of damage to your reputation. Such an impact. Kingsley opened his mouth to remind. I have no opinion. Chuhi shrugged, although he said he didn't really care about reputation or anything, but if he didn't go and explain, the orders from the Ministry of Magic would come endlessly like hunting devil vines. To pester him, he still has to go after the matter is over. He was reluctant to leave Hogwarts because he wasn't sure if the attackers had any accomplices, and where they were going. Hermione enthusiastically explained a lot of knowledge to him, and provided himself with great help in cracking the most evil magic book, so he naturally wanted to protect her. As for his other friend, Snape, he must have learned the anti-curse of the death-catching spell. After all, Snape is also a spell maker himself, so it shouldn't be difficult to learn. In addition, Snape's own magic power itself is very strong, and he should not be able to beat 13 against such Death Eaters, so as long as you make Hermione an amulet that is immune to the life-suppressing spell, it will be no problem for the time being. It is to investigate the real murderer and the forces involved behind it, and then go to destroy the door or throw it into Azkaban. Chuhi, I temporarily grant you the right to move freely at Hogwarts, but if conditions permit, I hope you can catch them alive. Dumbledore said. If there is no one around to protect it, it is not difficult to catch it alive. Chuhi said confidently. Then I'll ask you to conduct follow-up investigations. Dumbledore nodded. Before that, I have some things to prepare, first to find out who this corpse belongs to, and then to trace his whereabouts and his friend's social relations to see if we can find useful information. Chuhi said. At this time, Hogwarts janitor Argus Filch rushed over in a panic with his cat in his arms. Headmaster Dumbledore, your Mirror of Erised is missing, and it appears that someone has stolen your belongings. What? Dumbledore's expression suddenly became serious, and then with a click, he was swallowed by the grey vortex and apparated to the place where he had placed the Mirror of Erised. And Chuhi, who stayed in place, fell into contemplation at this time. Is it a coincidence that the Mirror of Erised was stolen at this point? There's a magic stone in there. It would be a reasonable explanation to say that killing people with the killing curse was to attract the attention of everyone in the school, and then let their companions steal the Mirror of Erised. No, it should be said that the other party originally wanted to drop the magic stone in the Mirror of Eris, but since most people have not studied the principles of magic, it is difficult to decipher the special defense magic on the Mirror of Eris without enough experience, so they are helpless. You can only steal the entire Mirror of Erised. Although it sounds unrealistic, it is not impossible to steal the entire Mirror of Erised under the influence of the traceless stretching charm. Take the suitcase he had previously confiscated by the Ministry of Magic. The space inside was greatly expanded after he cast the traceless stretching charm. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is a villa. It is still light to put a Mirror of Erised. Easy and loose. There is no risk in attacking a broomstick professor and a bunch of first-year freshmen. If you are not present, with the opponent's control of the life-suppressing curse, I am afraid that no matter how many people you kill, you will be able to escape. This can be seen from Mrs. Hooch, who is still retching with a broom on the side. Mrs. Hooch has no experience in killing, and naturally she can't stop the dark wizards or Death Eaters who make killing as commonplace. I am afraid that the dark wizard who cast the life-threatening spell never dreamed that this year's first-year freshman would appear as an alien who grew up under the enslavement of Death Eaters. That being said, Borgin has also said before that someone else has custom-made fakes of the Philosopher's Stone. But fortunately, I had already used the fake one to pack the real magic stone before. No matter what the other party wanted to do with the magic stone, it would eventually fail because the magic stone was a fake. And on the other hand, the stolen Mirror of Erised is a good thing for Chuhi, because the master of the Philosopher's Stone will definitely not find him. Even if the Mirror of Erised is recovered, the responsibility for the lost package can be placed on the person who stole the Mirror of Erised. But before that, let's make Hermione a Death Curse defense magician. Although the possibility of Hermione being attacked is very small, it is obviously safer to make one for her. He didn't rush to make a magic tool before because he thought that with Dumbledore at Hogwarts, it should be safe. But now it seems that I think too much. Dumbledore's deterrent is not strong enough that the Death Eaters dare not even enter Hogwarts. After making up his mind, Chuhi quickly returned to Slytherin's common room. "Chuhi, you're back," Professor Snape asked us to gather in the Great Hall. Draco said in awe when he saw Chuhi. "Go on your own, I got solitary action from Dumbledore." Chuhi waved his hand. "Well, Goyle, Crabbe, let's go." Draco left with his 2 roots, while Chuhi opened his suitcase previously confiscated by the Ministry of Magic, and then jumped in 003. The interior space of the suitcase has been expanded to 1,000 square meters under Chuhi's traceless stretching spell, and is divided into 6 areas in total. The first area is for cooking and resting, and the second is for storage. The collection area of various magic-related books he obtained through various channels. In the third area, there are a lot of magic items with strange effects. Most of the items in this area are small items that he bought with a small amount of Gin Galleon at the Black Magic shop in Nocturne Alley. He uses these magic items. The additional magic to improve one's experience is considered a warehouse area, and some living materials are also stored in this area. The fourth area is the research room used by Chuhi to study and improve magic spells, which is matched with the magic power measurement area of the fifth room. This magic spell testing area occupies 90% of the interior space of the suitcase, and the 900 square meter test space covers various terrains, which can test the power of a large number of magic spells. The last area is the area where Chuhi used to make magic tools. After finding a magic item that could be used for enchanting in the warehouse area, Chuhi began to engrave a pendant for Hermione that was immune to the life-threatening spell. 3 hours later, a silver hairpin with a life-suppressing anti-curse attached to it was made in Chuhi's hands. Since this time was an emergency operation, he did not have the energy-absorbing magic circle inscribed with the magic power absorbed by the wearer to supplement the magic power of the magic tool, as he did for Borkin, but directly poured his own magic power, which was probably able to withstand the level of 20 or 30 life-suppressing spells. After all, when a spell is proven to have no effect on people, most wizards will test it 2 or 3 times at most. There should be no one who throws more than 30 life-threatening spells in a row at a person who is immune to life-threatening spells. Unlike Borgin, who lives in Nocturne Alley, Hermione doesn't have many chances to be attacked by the life-slaying curse, so this urgently refined defensive magic tool should be enough for her. After all, rather than thinking about an attack in a few months, it is better to take defensive measures for her as soon as possible. The big deal is to wait until the matter is over in the future, and then ask her to come over to continue refining. Then Chuhi left his suitcase and walked quickly to the auditorium where the students gathered. At this time, due to the previous death curse attack, students of all grades were concentrated in the auditorium for protection. At the entrance, Professor McGonagall and Professor Flitwick were guarding the entrance of the auditorium with wands. "Chuhi, why are you here so late? Come in quickly." After seeing Chuhi, Professor McGonagall breathed a sigh of relief and waved to him. "Well, I did a little bit, and Headmaster Dumbledore said I could act alone." Chuhi answered Professor McGonagall politely. He could hear the concern from Professor McGonagall's words, and he didn't hate this kind of concern. What the hell is Albus thinking? Hogwarts is so dangerous right now, and it makes you run around. When Professor McGonagall heard that Dumbledore gave Chuhi the right to act alone, he immediately called him by his first name. "Please rest assured, I have the ability to protect myself." Chuhi smiled and then walked into the auditorium. Professor McGonagall behind him sighed, but said nothing more. After all, in her eyes, Chuhi is also a measured child and should not do stupid things. At this time, the students sat in the area of their respective branches chatting nervously. Hermione was sitting in the corner of the Gryffindor branch with her knees in a daze. Since she was usually arrogant, no one wanted to sit with her at this time. And because the evacuation requested by the branch professor was too urgent, she didn't have time to pick up books that could pass the time, which made her a little hard. Chuhi waved to Hermione. Hermione froze for a moment, and immediately got up from the ground happily and ran to Chuhi. This hairpin is for you, and I have attached a defensive spell to it, so you don't take it off until it's over. Chuhi handed Hermione the newly made hairpin. Difficult, don't tell me. Hermione looked at the hairpin in her hands in surprise. Chuhi would not do meaningless things for no reason. This hairpin. Maybe the curse that can be defended against is. Bingshe is smart and she can naturally guess the meaning of this hairpin that Chuhi gave herself. Well, just understand it yourself, don't give it to others, it takes a lot of time to refine this thing. Chuhi exhorted. Good. I will cherish it. Hermione happily gripped the silver hairpin tightly in her hands. If you're bored, read this book. Chuhi took out a high-end magic spell from his pocket and handed it to Hermione. Thank you. I'll pay you back when I'm done reading it. Hermione took over this high-end magic spell with great enthusiasm. With this book, she can ignore the classmates who want to chat with her, and she can completely immerse herself in the world of books. Okay, go back. Chuhi waved his hand. Hermione then returned to the corner of the Gryffindor area with the book, leaned against the wall and looked at the magic book, while Cassandra came to Chuhi. What did you give that Gryffindor girl just now? Cassandra asked unhappily. A defensive magic tool. She helped me a lot when she was in the library, and answered a lot of my questions, so she has to return the gift. Chuhi answered. This is it. Then it's nothing, I'll go first to investigate who wants to kill you. After Chuhi finished speaking, he planned to turn around and leave the auditorium. After all, he only came here to give Hermione the defensive magic tool with the anti-curse of life-suppressing spell attached. And many more. Cassandra grabbed Chuhi's wrist. Huh, is there anything else? Chuhi looked back at Cassandra. Investigate such a dangerous thing, and leave it to the professor and the Aurors. You also stay and receive protection. Don't venture outside. Cassandra said with some unease that even though she knew that Chuhi was very powerful, she would still be worried. Don't worry, you've fought so many magical duels with me, do you think anyone can win me? Chuhi smiled slightly and gently stroked Cassandra's delicate cheek. Well, of course I don't think anyone can win you over. Cassandra blushed and answered. After all, when Chuhi was training her, she was just like an evil spirit, and all kinds of terrifying killing spells smashed at her like magic. If Chuhi's repair spell was not used well, she estimated that there were 2 people outside the Forbidden Forest. In the area used for magic duels, even the ground will be blown away by a layer of magic. In her mind, Chuhi is so powerful that no one can beat him. So don't worry, I'm strong and I'll be fine. It's better to investigate this matter early. The energy of the professors is also limited. Over time, there will inevitably be flaws in defense. It's better to take the initiative to solve the opponent early. It is good. Then you promise me that you must come back to see me. You can't die. Wang Jiaohao will not allow you to die. So you must come back to see me. Cassandra firmly held Chuhi's hand and demanded in a commanding tone. Okay, follow your orders, my eldest lady, you won't die soon. Chuhi smiled and touched Cassandra's hand, indicating that he should not worry about himself, and then walked out of the auditorium. Professor McGonagall, has the student rollout investigated which student is missing? Chuhi came to Minerva McGonagall and asked. Yes, Current Vanilla of your Slytherin branch and Agri Swan of Ravenclaw haven't come yet. I asked him, they're classmates, and they haven't seen them since this morning. McGonagall answered. Current. The name Chuhi has an impression. At that time, at King's Cross Station, after Cassandra's nemesis Panessa failed in a magical duel with Cassandra, the boy once attacked Cassandra. But it is absolutely impossible for Current to release the life-suppressing spell. He does not have such a high level of magic at all, and the magic level in his body is only the blue heart. Chuhi can assert that he cannot control the life-suppressing spell so accurately. But then again, judging from the amount of flesh of the corpse that was crushed to death by a meteorite, it basically matched Karat's figure. Is it a compound decoction? Chuhi muttered to himself. Compound decoction. McGonagall was a little surprised by the words that came out of Chuhi's mouth. Yes. The corpse of the dark wizard I killed in the broomstick class today is almost the same as that of Currit. I think he really died as Currit. The dark wizard should be disguised as a student with polyjuice potion, infiltrating Hogwarts to do some dirty work. Chuhi opened and analyzed. There were 2 students who did not evacuate in the auditorium. From the testimony of their classmates, it was known that the 2 had not appeared since the morning, which is in line with the current situation of 673. Oh, it's like this, doesn't it mean that the students in the auditorium may also be in danger? Flitwick, I'll ask you to watch it by yourself. Hearing Chuhi's words, McGonagall pulled out his wand and walked nervously into the auditorium. She has no time to think about why Chuhi can say such things as the body mass so calmly. For her, the safety of the students is the most important thing at the moment. And Chuhi also followed by and entered the auditorium again, and then launched a magic perspective through his pupils to observe the other students in the auditorium. The compound decoction may be able to conceal a person's identity from the outside, but it cannot conceal the magic level. As long as there is magic power with blue strength in the student's body, then he can basically confirm that the other party is a student disguised by the Death Eaters through the compound decoction. After all, having cyan magic power can already be regarded as a first-class master in the wizarding world, while white magic power is only possessed by the long-established wizard sealings like Dumbledore and Voldemort. Even some Aurors or Hogwarts professors don't reach BDBD cyan magic, so as long as there is magic of this color among students, there must be something wrong. However, the other party has successfully stolen the Mirror of Arised. It stands to reason that he should have escaped from Hogwarts with the Mirror of Arised as soon as possible. There is no reason to stay here and take refuge with the students. Chuhi, I will arrange for the prefects of each branch to seize the students' personal belongings in turn to check whether there is a compound decoction. If there is really a spy disguised among the Hogwarts students, this check will definitely kill him. I hope you can assist me in knocking him down immediately. Do you have any opinion on that? Professor McGonagall lowered his head slightly and whispered to Chuhi, but Chuhi had already drawn out his wand. It's all petrified. The magical light of the petrification charm instantly hit a 5th grade student in Gryffindor, who immediately fell to the ground stiffly. Chuhi. Minerva McGonagall looked at Chuhi, who was attacking without warning, in surprise. Then Chuhi flicked his wand, and the 5th grader was manipulated by Chuhi to float in front of the 2 of them with a levitation spell. Professor McGonagall, do you have the potion to remove the potion? I think this person is suspicious. Chuhi pointed at the Gryffindor student who was controlled by himself with the petrification spell with his wand. The mana within his body had reached the same cyan magic power as he had filled half of his body. The degree of suspicion was beyond the table. Dean's strength magic. This should be with Severus Snape, the head of your branch. I don't know about the potion. Then can I ask you to find Professor Snape? Chuhi asked, and at the same time reached out and took out the student's wand and hid it in his pocket. God guard. Professor McGonagall waved his wand, and the silver magic formed a tabby cat and rushed out. The advanced Patronus charm can speak, so it can also be used as a messenger between wizards. 20 minutes later, Snape hurried in from outside the auditorium, then took out a vial from his pocket, squeezed the mouth of the student who had fallen on the ground, and poured some potion into him. A few seconds later, the face and body of the senior Gryffindor student who had been cast by Chuhi's petrification spell twitched violently. His height increased by about 10 centimeters, and his face turned into a gloomy and ugly middle-aged man. Evan Rosier. Snape spoke slowly. Professor Snape, do you know him? Chuhi asked in surprise. My classmate, Death Eater, curses to stop. Snape explained briefly, then the wand lifted the petrification spell a little, and then poked Evan Rosier in the face with his wand. Severus Snape, you traitor, are you happy being Dumbledore's dog? Evan Rosier, who had lifted the petrification curse, frantically condemned Snape. Although he said that he was locked by Chuhi's petrification curse before, he still retained his self-awareness. Act rashly. Looking at what happened to yourself. I think Azkaban would be, welcome to you. Isn't the feeling of a Dementor's kiss unbearable? Snape tormented Evan Rosier with a sneer in his characteristic weird tone. Ha ha ha, Dementor, so what, the fool you like was not killed by Lord Voldemort, ha ha ha, this is your retribution. Evan Rosier laughed fearlessly, mocking Snape. Avada. Snape, who was touched by Evan Rosier, couldn't hold back his anger, and planned to recite the mantra. Severus, you can't cast that spell here. Accept your weapon. Professor McGonagall on the side shot down Snape's weapon with a disarming spell. Evan Rosier immediately rushed over and tried to pick up Snape's wand, but before he could touch Snape's wand, he saw that Chuhi's wand had already pointed at itself. Fractured. A tingling sound of a sharp blade piercing into the bone that made the scalp tingle came from Evan Rosier's body, and then the right arm he stretched out to snatch the wand was cut off by Chuhi's cutting spell, and the severe pain of the severed limb suddenly made him feel uncomfortable. Evan Rosier rolled on the ground in pain and cried.